Silver Dave here. Viewers on my channel know that I stack gold and silver. But I've been watching the news and I believe everybody knows what's been going on. I'm not going to elaborate too much about it. But let's find out some very good reasons why you should consider stacking some gold and silver if you haven't been stacking gold and silver. So let's find out. So I want to preface this a little bit. I'm not a doom and gloom channel. I'm never going to tell my viewers to back up the truck and be financially irresponsible and dump all of their money into gold and silver. You know, for me, this is what I've accumulated over time with spare income. And I treat this as a safety, like a savings account with extra security that, you know, it's not in a third party. I have been watching the news. I am not going to elaborate too much upon it. I think, it happened, but it's painted quite a clear picture of what might happen going forward. I have, on my channel, I have made quite a few videos about, potential uncertainty in 2021. And that is one of the reasons why, I would say, I got into a little bit of buying like numismatic silver in 2020, 2029, and I also was buying bits and pieces there before that. But I really started accumulating quite aggressively in 2020, and specifically after this, after September when there was a correction, there was more buying opportunities. I started really loading up on gold, but it's been it's interesting time. It's not interesting. It's kind of terrible times, and I've been telling people that my projections for gold, because of all the monetary easing and all the monetary risks on the U.S. dollar, there's a lot of upward pressure for precious metals, and I never wished for gold to reach $10,000, $5,000. For me, that was like not a world I want to live in, right? For gold to reach that amount, it means that there is a collapse. And I didn't foresee that. I didn't predict that, but I did see that there was a lot of uncertainty that could potentially happen. There's a lot of black swan events, that markets are not taking into account, and they don't price them in. There's no insurance on the asset prices you see in the stock market. And it's if you look at options pricing too, they don't price that in. They're mainly pricing in the trade momentum and trade volatility. They don't price in a lot of the fundamental and geopolitical risk that is associated with some of the stock values out there. Part of it, I don't know why, but it could be just complacency. It could be just, like the way I like to put it is, you could have a building on fire, but if the first 2 floors are on fire, the people in the penthouse don't see it. And yeah, it's kind of like that, the penthouse, the building's on fire, the people in the penthouse don't see it, and they're like, oh, the delivery people aren't coming up, so we'll order it by helicopter. You're like, no, the building's on fire, you gotta put the fire out. But no, that's not the case right now. It's more like right now, everybody's so used to putting band-aids everywhere that eventually, the band-aids are not structurally unsound and things do collapse. But I don't wish that. I really don't want to live in a world where we have a 5-figure gold and triple-figure, 4-figure silver. It's not my projection. I did make earlier projections that due to the monetary pressure, gold and silver potentially, specifically gold, might be in the 2000 plus range. However, I don't know what will be the new range going forwards. There's a lot more uncertainty than I expected. I did expect uncertainty, just not this much uncertainty. So what are some of the reasons why you should consider getting gold and silver? Well, this is the oldest form of money in existence that has survived the test of time. It survived the collapse of the Roman Empire. It survived the collapse of the Greek civilization. It's survived the collapse of the British Empire. People forget that, the gold sovereign, it used the pound, used to be, no, that's a Swiss franc, but the pound here used to be made out of gold, and then they debased it. But back then, before I think 1930 something, the sovereign pound, 1950s, the sovereign pound was the global reserve currency. And then they moved off the gold standard from the pound, and slowly the currency debased, and it was no longer the gold reserve currency. They moved on to the dollar. In every time in history, like, the cycle of money is actually quite slow. It's not something that happens over 10 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. It's usually cycles of, multiple generations. And what we're seeing now potentially is the end of the end of the cycle, or approaching the end of the cycle of one generation. And yeah, it happened during the Roman Empire. It happened it happened later on with the Byzantium Empire. It happened in every single empire that existed, every single civilization that existed. There was fiat currency that was debased, and currency debasement essentially destroyed the monetary trust that people had in the money. It was also what destroyed, I believe, during the Napoleon era. This is the Latin Monetary Union coin. There was debasement by the Papal States on the Latin monetary coins, and they benefited greatly in the short term from the debasement, that is the Papal States, but it destroyed the overall trust in the continental financial monetary system, So yeah, there's always an incentive in the short term to debase your currency. There's never, but in the long term, it's debatable. Should you do it or not? And humans, we tend to think in the short term. Election cycles are 4 years. Some presidential cycles, some presidents stay on for 8 years. Nobody stays for hundreds of years. They end up being a dictator if they're for an extremely long time. But yeah, so it's an interesting times. I've been picking up more gold. I've been picking up gold before Christmas. As you know, every time I've been adding gold, I've been telling people, look, I've been adding gold. One thing I've seen now is a lot of the gold dealers, they remove their sales from gold. I think there is quite a large demand on physical gold at least bullion dealers. So I'm seeing gold premiums rise, which is something that I normally don't see, because gold premiums are usually quite low because there's no taxes on them, and it's not considered a highly attractive investment asset until recently. So yeah, I've been picking up more gold. I've been also buying some financial instruments, but I'm not going to disclose. It's not related to this channel, but I've been, preparing myself against uncertainty, financial uncertainty in the upcoming days. The main reason why I think, you should consider adding some physical bullion is that this is protection against financial uncertainty. To the most extreme case, though. There are cases where you're like, yeah, but what if the internet can't be shut down? Sure, the internet cannot be shut down. You can invest in crypto and so on. But if infrastructure fails, right, during uncertainty, you cannot transact with cryptocurrencies. And if you are in a crisis where there is stringent financial controls on, excuse me, on the internet and internet messaging, which I'm seeing right now, that there's crackdowns on a lot of social media sites censoring different messages. You have to realize that the internet is not free as people think. Yeah, and if the internet is not free, transacting with a digital currency is not free either. And that's problematic. And you're like, okay, but is gold free? Well, you can always transact with an individual with gold without passing through a network, right? Without having to have your transactions be unprivate. There is a fundamental aspect that I don't like about where we're going, is that there is a asymmetry in the in data privacy. That is, people who are in positions of governments or who are in key company positions have access to your data, but you don't have access to their data. You see, that is a problem because that gives you less negotiation power as a consumer. It gives you less negotiation power as a citizen. I'm not even talking about nefarious things they can do. I'm just talking about the basics of life. You know, you just have no negotiation power if you have an asymmetry in the information. And it allows companies to do things like price discrimination. You know, that's not okay. That goes up against, you know, basic consumer rights. And yeah, so yeah, but that's the way we're going towards. So, but this stuff, it doesn't depend on the network. You can always exchange gold and silver in person with other people. That's the second reason why I think this is a, you know, beyond the fact that it's a physical savings account you can see, it doesn't depend on a third party. Second reason is it offers absolute transaction privacy. It's perfectly fungible. One unit of gold is the same as the next unit of gold. It's got a lot of, you know, built-in privacy settings into the way it's done. It has disadvantages, you know, you can't have escrow, whatever, you might get scammed or so on, but it offers you privacy. And you have to decide now what is more valuable, like privacy or 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 you know, having a traceable system. Right now, I think the price of privacy is it's worth it. And finally, I think you know, this is it's something that has existed for a long time, that has proved itself over a long time. I do have some crypto, but I do have some Bitcoin, some Ether, some Litecoin. I also have some altcoins, but not so much that that I have all of my assets in it. That is more like if we have a fundamental complete shift, I've got something backing it up. You know, I have a bit into everything. Not, I don't have all my I would say chickens and eggs in one basket. And so for me, you know, I was a little bit lacking on the physical aspect, and the more I was looking at how the world is evolving, the more I'm like, yeah, this isn't a bad bet. Most banks, a lot of major financial institutions are coming out and backing silver and backing gold. You know, this is something that they haven't done. They've been like trashing this type of asset for ages, since like since the 90s. They've been trashing precious metals as a store of wealth, because they're like, yeah, but you can just buy government bonds. You can buy U.S. Treasury notes that pay you a safe interest rate. And you're like, yeah, but can you say that now? Can you say that today, when every single day they have to debase the currency, and you are exposing yourself to currency risk? In addition, you're exposing yourself to the risk that your yields will go down, and that, you know, if the price of the bond increases, you know, you're actually, if you're holding the bond, the best thing to do is actually to sell the bond, right, and not hold on to it, because essentially over the long term it actually gives you more money, but that's not a good that kind of kills the purpose of a bond, which should be relatively stable and not be exposed to such volatility. Volatility in the bond market is never a good thing. Even if the bond's pricing is going up, you might make a lot of money in the short term, but in the long term, you have to ask, what is it doing fundamentally to the society? And people don't ask that question. People like making money in the short term. So yeah, so for me, you know, I'm not a doom and gloom person. I don't want to live in a world where there is, you know, I think right now I'm seeing some people saying, you know, we're probably heading to a $10,000 an ounce gold. I don't want that situation. That's not a good situation. I don't want $100 silver. I'm okay with like silver, you know, going up to like a little bit over the course of like the next 5 years, 10 years. It means that the overall world is kind of happy. I'm not really losing money, but I'm living in a world where things are stable. I can go travel. I can go like meet my friends. I can do things about life instead of, you know, spending all day looking at markets and looking at crazy news cycles. But that's the world we live in. You have to be realistic. We live in a crazy times. You know, 2020 was crazy. 2021, I don't know, man. We're on a start that's a little bit we're off a rocky start, and it looks like at this moment, January 2021 is much crazier than January 2020. So people had a party on New Year's expecting things will end, and that's doesn't look like it. And also, I've been telling people, like, even before in my previous videos, you should be preparing for uncertainty. There's other uncertainty that is not factored in. For example, people have been extremely euphoric about the vaccine. Like, even it came when it came. It should have not been a surprise that it came. But when they have the vaccine coming, viruses mutate. Viruses, you have to deploy the vaccine. There's so many hurdles. I told people, look, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but the pricing of the tunnel is like they're pricing it as if it's $10 to get to the end of the tunnel, but actually it's going to cost probably like $10,000 to get to the end of the tunnel. And the markets, everything, nobody's pricing that in. So it goes back to the analogy, it's like the building's burning. The first 3 floors are building, but the people in the penthouse, they don't see it. So it will take time. I don't want the building to collapse. Hopefully somebody comes and puts out the fire. But when it's still manageable, you don't want the whole to have like 8 floors filled with fire, and then people in the penthouse panic and want to put it out, and then they can't because the building's like half burnt. It's kind of like that at the moment, so it's not a great sign. And I've been stacking platinum. I don't know if I'll pick up more platinum. I did pick up more gold for this month. I did it last night, like very early last night, as things were unfolding, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, I need to get a little bit more, even though I do have quite a bit. You can see here I have a few ounces of gold. I've got platinum. I've got plenty of silver. I've got more silver in the vault. But yeah, I've got like close to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got a little bit more than 5 ounces of gold, and a bit more than 6 ounces of gold, let's say. 6 ounces of pure gold, 1 ounce of platinum. I've got a few hundred ounces of silver. If they keep debasing the US dollar, it's normal that commodities go up, such as silver. This is an industrial commodity. If they keep debasing the dollar, this is a monetary hedge. Gold will still go up. I don't want it. Like I've said it so many times on my channel. I don't tell my viewers to back up the truck, but because you still need cash in the short term. It's not financial advice, but I advise people to start saving a little bit. Be financially responsible. Don't lose your shirts. Don't go all in. I've been using about a little bit less than like half of my spare income, my disposable income, that I'm not using to buy fun things, right? I'm not using to go to restaurants. I'm not using to go on holidays. I'm using it to pretty much just stack gold and silver, and then to build a small, my own personal like central bank reserve of precious metals. But we live in weird times, and you have to do what you have to do. Anyways, if you like my video, I'll put the link to my previous predictions. Some of them are, I never wanted them to come true, but we live in strange times. I did say that people should be careful, that this is insurance. It's like you can buy fire insurance for your house, but you really don't want your house to burn up. But you're glad you have the insurance. So that's kind of like what I'm doing. I'm buying fire insurance when the insurance is cheap, but I really don't want the house to go into flames. But if I see that my neighbor's house is going to flames and every single like house around the area is going to flames, I'm kind of happy I got the fire insurance. Yeah, that's kind of my position right now. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'll post the previous prediction videos from earlier this year that I made into the links below. This is not financial advice. That's my disclaimer. Don't go and invest or buy stuff based upon my advice. I'm some dude on YouTube. You use your own judgment, and definitely stay safe, stay healthy, and make sure that your health is the most important thing during these times. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. This was Dave out.